Kia ora koutou. My name is Shannon Barlow. I'm the Managing Director for Frog Recruitment, part of the P2P Recruitment Group. I'm excited to be here today, back in the office, and presenting to you all. Honestly, I'm not terrified at all at the thought of my very first webinar. But now is the time to step outside of your comfort zone, and I know you'll all remember to be kind. I thought I'd start with a promise. I promise to avoid the temptation of using any of the buzzwords or phrases of this time, and I'm sure you know them all, especially if you've been tuning into New Zealand's favourite 1 PM reality TV show. And if I do slip up, make sure to comment through chat, and for every time you catch me out, Kirsty will do a push-up. Just kidding. Now, the fact that we are running this webinar is a testament to the extraordinary changes we are experiencing in the world of work. Recruiters, like virtually every other industry, have had to change the way we engage with our customers. And job seekers will also find a much changed landscape as you look for and secure work. This webinar is a way for us to stay connected with you and to give something back and help you navigate this new environment. For our first Frog webinar, I wanted to focus on the temp market. So typically in an economic downturn, we see temp jobs stay relatively stable at the beginning of the trouble. And they're also the first jobs that we see return as we rise out. Now, a global pandemic is far from the typical situation, but we have experienced similar trends so far. Before I go into those trends though, I wanted to get an idea of who's in our audience and what has brought you here today. So please take a moment to answer the poll. Okay, just waiting for the pretty evenly split there. Okay, so it looks like the results are moving there, but for the most part, the winner seems to be through the middle. Oh, it's just changed. But an even spread between people with experience with temping and those who are checking it out for the first time to see if it's a good option. So the good news is there's something here for everyone. So as I go through the workforce trends, the first one I wanted to talk about is that we're seeing a greater demand for temporary employees over permanent. So as you know, things have moved very quickly and changed dramatically in New Zealand in March this year. I think it will be one of those events where you look back and always remember where you were when you heard the lockdown announcement. For me, I was here in the office, having just finalised our split teams. So Team A and Team B, deciding who's working from the office and who's working from home. Of course, only to find that it was the whole team working from home. So with most businesses unable to operate, here's how it played out for us. So at level 4, we found that the majority of our permanent and fixed term contract roles were either placed on hold or cancelled. We did also see cancellation of some of our temporary assignments, but this had a much less impact than for our permanent work. So something around 15%. So we're just experiencing, I can see that we're having problems with the microphone. Yep. Okay, sorry about that. Live TV, always have some technical difficulties. Is that better? Ah, great.
Beautiful. All right, we'll carry on. So what was I saying? So at level 4, we did see some changes to the temporary assignments that we had coming through, and also cancellation of some of those. So this was due to things like a decreased workload, inability to work from home. So that was more around the job not being able to be run from home, rather than candidates not being able to work from home, as well as redeployment of permanent staff. So we had, as you can imagine, we had the permanent teams being able to shuffle their duties to cover what the temps would usually take care of. We also saw a reduction in our temp and contractor hours. And on a positive note, we saw the creation of some new temporary roles. So these were across a number of areas, including things like cleaning and health and safety roles, operations, as well as healthcare. So these were just a few of the areas we saw there. So as in the GFC, we saw our temp business stand relatively firm, as businesses that could keep running needed staff to keep them running. Plus, with the unique circumstances, with need for greater health and safety measures and contact tracing, it created new temp opportunities. So as level 3 came through, we started to see momentum build up. So some of the roles that had been placed on hold were then given the green light to start recruitment again, so which is a great start, as well as some of the temps who had been placed on standby were able to be rehired. And then with level 2, that's only improved again. So increased hours for our retained temps. We had some more temps rehired, as well as confirmed start dates for some of the candidates who we'd placed before the lockdown and had been sitting in limbo. So great to have some start dates, and so that they can join their new teams. And the best of all, so we have started to see some new roles coming through across all of our work areas, so temp, contractor, fixed term contracts, as well as permanent roles. So with the changed market conditions also comes opportunity. We have tripled our number of working temps since March, mainly due to some high volume recruitment projects that have come about specifically due to COVID-19 rather than despite it. The biggest of these have been the Ministry of Health Close Contact Centre, as well as the New Zealand Post Contact Centre, which leads nicely into industries of opportunity. So I've basically categorised these into 3 groups. So first of all, we have the safe industries. So things like essential services, government, healthcare, some pockets of manufacturing and FMCG. So the areas that were able to keep operating through the lockdown and through all of the levels. To support that, funnily enough, we have the supporting industries. So things like packaging, packing and delivery, contact centre, help desk, whether that's for customer service as well as online IT help desk. And the last area, so surge industries or emerging industries. So these are things like you would have noticed a huge increase in e-commerce, or your favourite stores suddenly offering those services, as well as e-learning, so something other than going for a walk to keep us occupied while we're in lockdown, as well as logistics and supply chain, and areas like agriculture, so industries that typically rely on workers from overseas. So what are some of the industries or jobs that grew in demand at lockdown that have surprised you? So if you could put those in the chat. Don't be shy, it's hard, believe me, it's harder for us than you. All right, I must have come up with more, so we'll just go along. So what was the question? So looking at what were some of the industries or role types that have increased, or there was a higher demand during lockdown or during this time that have really surprised you? Okay, so we'll move on from there, but I think the best thing to do is to really think about those industries that are still on the increase. So yes, working at the supermarket, that picking and packing, as well as restocking shelves, and also within delivery has been a big area where we've seen a huge increase. So the best thing to do is to work with your frog talentologist or relationship manager to really work on targeting these opportunities, but in the industries that are going to be the right fit for you. Now, the last area that I wanted to talk about is to show how the value of hiring temps has been amplified. So a few years ago, we posted 16 reasons for hiring a temp. Now, these are all great reasons, but some obviously have a greater importance now to keep businesses running and to seize opportunities born from crisis. So number one, the work doesn't wait to be completed, you get immediate help. So we've seen already where businesses have experienced a sudden surge in demand for products or services. So whether that's from sanitizer, flour, toilet paper, all the way through to customer service support for things like travel, health, insurance, and deliveries. So they need to get temps on board to be able to meet that demand. Another area, so don't worry if you don't have approval for permanent staff, you can still get the job done by hiring a temp. So temps can be a great solution when the business has the workload but doesn't have the headcount to be able to deal with that demand. Number four, so make sure you keep the wheels turning, even if someone is sick. So this one's really interesting. So we predict that people's take-up of sick days is likely to increase as the stoic Kiwi culture of soldiering on while sick and just going into work becomes a health and safety risk. So people will be more likely to stay at home when they're unwell, as well as to look after children who you might have normally just sent along to school. These next two are interesting. So that horrible job that just never gets done can be sorted out quickly with temp staff, and reward your best staff with project work while you get the temp to sort out the menial stuff. So not exactly a high selling point for temp, but it is a reality and can be a really good way to get your foot in the door and prove that you have much more value than just taking care of the jobs that no one else wants to do. Which leads into, if you don't have the skills in-house, then hire them in. So many businesses are changing the way that they work and offering new services without necessarily having all the know-how. So your specialist skills can be put to good use as businesses also step out of their comfort zone and implement new processes and systems. Let an agency handle all the hassle of having your payroll process. So hiring, onboarding, and paying casual staff correctly can be more complicated than it is for permanent employees. So recruiting temps through an agency can be a good option for your business. So it pays to stay close to your recruiter and to let them do the legwork for you. And last of all, emergency. Have someone in the seat fast. So temps can come in and save the day when things don't quite go to plan, or when a business thinks that they have everything covered and then suddenly realize they don't. So this is your chance to be the hero in the story. So you can see that temp work can be a really excellent option, especially in times of economic uncertainty. So now I'll hand over to Kirsty, who has some great tips for succeeding in the temporary market.
So, Thanks for that. And sorry, guys, about the technical issues that we had at the start. Probably should have had a bit more of a run through on that one. But thanks very much, Shannon. I am Kirsty, one of the relationship managers at Frog Recruitment, and I specialise in that temp and contract space. So as Shannon mentioned, I'm not at all scared about doing this webinar. I was actually really, really surprised when I was asked to do the webinar, as everyone in our work knows that I'm not the best public speaker after my car crash of a speech at the work's Christmas party. But I suppose now is a good time more than any to upskill, and obviously that's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about, so I may as well be practicing what I preach. So from the poll earlier, I do know that there are quite a few people on the call today that have never temped before. So I think the first thing that I'm going to go through is just around what is temping. I'll then move on to kind of some of the benefits around temping, and then I'll finish it off with basically how you can stand out from the crowd and how you can be attractive within the market at the moment. So to start off, we'll go on to what is working as a temp. So I know many of you are going to, yes, that was bad English. I know many of you are going to know what this is, but temporary employees are those who are expected to retain their positions for a limited period. So you are often hired through a third-party employment agency, quite like ourselves. So I think one of the important things to note here is that you are actually employed by the agency, not by the company that you're temping at. The second difference between working as a temp in comparison to working as a permanent employee is normally that instead of being on a salary basis, you are normally on an hourly basis. And I think for those of you who have been on salary, the best kind of idea for you would be to have a look at what your salary equivalates to on the hourly front. And it's different for different people, because some people, when they're going into a temporary position, don't mind taking a bit of a pay cut just because it's a temporary role and it's not forever. Other people want to have that bit extra because of the fact that they haven't got the stability of having a permanent role. So I think you need to just work out what works for you and what works for your lifestyle. The other thing is what to mention is you do get your 8% holiday pay on top. So that always adds that little bit extra to your hourly wage. One of the things that I found quite interesting within the temp market, especially here, so I came from England, from Manchester, and I actually worked in the teaching space. So I was recruiting for teachers, and a lot of the work that we got through was a day here, a day there, 2 days a week. Whereas what I found within this industry, within the white collar space that we specialise in, is that you don't tend to get a lot of them kind of temporary roles coming through that are kind of a day here, day there. They tend to be a bit of more longer term. And I think that's just due to kind of the resources that we've got at the moment and the technology that's coming in. People just tend to kind of cover them roles internally if someone's having a day off here and there. So what we're finding is that the longevity of roles have changed. So we are getting a lot of things in that are a little bit longer than what they used to be. And on average, it's around about 3 months, although we do get things coming in for around about 4 weeks' time as well. So one of the things that I just want to go on to ask you guys before I move on to it is, what do you think are some of the benefits of temping? Yep. Perfect. Yep. Great exposure to different clients. 100%. Grow your skill set. Yep. Definitely flexibility. 100%. Meeting a variety of people in an industry, an opportunity to get experience. 100%. Try before you buy. Yep. The one that we touched on earlier. I can just see someone else is getting your foot in the door. 100%, Janet. It is an amazing opportunity to get the experience. Yep, Renee, expanding your skill set. That's definitely some of the points that I'm going to be touching on. So I think the next part is around what are the benefits? What are the benefits to you, not to the company, of going into a temporary role? So why should you consider a temping? So we all know we obviously work to make some money, but I think the great thing with temping is that it can fit around your lifestyle. So we've all got different things going on. Some of us are mums, some of us are students, some of us are backpacking and we're traveling at the moment. So I think a great thing is that the temporary work, instead of fitting your lifestyle around work, you're actually fitting your work around your lifestyle. So it's a great opportunity to get that experience. I think one of the things that when I was in Australia and I was backpacking, I was doing temporary positions, so mainly in that customer service space in retail and different industries. But then what I went into was face-to-face fundraising, which was an amazing kind of challenge. I was very nervous to kind of be stood on the street stopping people. Obviously, we're not the favourite kind of people in that space. But one of the things that I found really interesting was it was actually getting into that temporary position that helped me get into recruitment in the long run, because the interviewers when I went in were so focused on the face-to-face fundraising and the fact that I had been resilient and been good in that sales role, that it actually helped me get the position to come into my career and be here today. So I think that leads on to kind of experiencing cultures and experience different roles, which I know quite a few of you did mention on the chat. So it is a great opportunity, and especially I think for people that temp on a full-time basis, but also for you guys that have found yourself kind of back on the market, it's a great opportunity for you to try out different roles, different industries, different sectors, and just get that exposure to different cultures. I think I interview people on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes when we're going through the CV, they do roles that I've never even heard of. So there are things out there that you might not have even known is a role, and you can get that exposure to working in them areas. One of the other examples I'd like to give is around Remy, who actually is in the background doing all the webinar stuff for us. So he started with Frog Recruitment and People to People on a data entry position for 4 weeks. And obviously it was not his dream job to be doing. But from that, he is now working with Renee, our marketing manager, and he is helping her out with the webinars, doing big projects, the Frog website, the People to People website, and he works with all the managers across Australasia. And I think the thing is that going into a temporary position can give you that opportunity to get exposure to things that you might not have had exposure should you have not tried that initial rollout. And I think that leads us on to my next point, which is around networking. So networking, once you're in a company and you get your foot in the door, which I know a lot of you kind of commented on earlier as well, you can network yourself within that company and you can speak to different people. And I think one of the things what's quite interesting around temping is for permanent employees, you've got your set job description, and you tend to kind of stick to what it is that you're doing. Whereas because you're going in there as a temp and your assignment's for 4 weeks, 3 months, and if a company likes you, they tend to try and find something else for you. So a lot of the time you end up actually moving around and building up new skills and building up exposure to different areas and different roles. And as we all know, Auckland and New Zealand is quite a small market. So I do think that sometimes, especially here, it's not always what you know, but who you know. And it's not uncommon as well that when you've gone into a position in for a particular company and they might not have something, that you actually can get referred across to a different company for someone that they know. So it's a great opportunity for you to get out there and just for you to network yourself. And I think that takes us on to the last kind of area as well about upskilling and just building your confidence. I know for a lot of people, I've had a lot of people ringing me, and it's been a real blow to their confidence, the fact that they have been let go at this time. And it really shouldn't be. And I think temping could be an amazing, amazing opportunity for you to kind of build on your confidence. So a lot of people have gone into, have come out of roles that they've worked in for years. And I think one of the things with that is sometimes you get a bit of a tunnel vision on how to do things. And I think when you go into a temporary role, you're going to get that exposure to different managers, different systems, and just different ways of doing things. And it allows you to upskill and add them extra skills basically to your CV, to your little bow and arrow. And then when you go into the next role that you're going into, it just gives you that bit more confidence, and you've got that extra bit to add basically to that company. So I'm just going to put my first poll up. But yeah, if you would like to do, what would be, I think it's my first poll, sorry, what would be the deciding factor for you around why you would want to temp? Did I do a poll on this? No? Okay, maybe a question. We'll do this one as a question. What would be the deciding factor for you want to get into temping? Work from home, yeah, definitely. It's a huge one at the minute, actually, and it's something that I hadn't really put much into the webinar and expanding on. But at the moment, we are living in a time where things are changing, and I think we're living in a time where people are becoming a bit more open to the fact of working from home. And it was one of the interesting things that we found when we've been speaking with our clients, that they are actually looking to bring in that work from home a little bit more. Fit around your lifestyle, definitely. Have an income, 100%. It's all about the money and learning new skills, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Great way to build your experience. I mean, I was talking to a candidate earlier and she has not got experience in New Zealand. So she is looking to get into that temporary market just so that she can build her New Zealand experience as well. So I think it's a great thing to kind of get your foot in the door, even if it's a completely new market. So now I'm going to put up my first poll, and it is going to be in terms of, I just want to see who has applied for a role recently. Yeah, we've got some answers coming through. So a lot of you are saying that you have, a couple of you that haven't applied. And then I'm just going to put up my next poll that goes in conjunction with that one. And it is just around, where are you up to in your job search? Perfect. Okay. Brilliant. So we have 73% of people who are applying for roles at the moment, 27% of you who haven't. In terms of people's areas, so a lot of you, haven't started, so that makes sense with the other one. 43% have applied but haven't had an update yet. So I think the interesting thing around this, and I have had a couple of people ringing me up and saying, I've not heard anything, I'm not sure what's happening. And I just want to put a note out there on this one, that if you haven't heard yet, don't worry. I have been speaking with hiring managers and HR, talent acquisition, and we've just turned from a really candidate short market to a really candidate heavy market. And I think the thing around that is places are getting a lot of applications, between 600 to 1,000 applications for some of their roles. So if they're not getting back to you straight away, don't worry about it. It is just that the recruitment process is slightly slower at the moment, just due to the volume of people who are applying. And then applied but not been successful. Yeah, that's not a problem. We'll go into some of the reasons in a second around how you can be kind of attractive in the market. But like I said, it is a candidate heavy market at the moment, so it is quite, it can be quite difficult at the moment finding a role. So let me move on to tips on how to make yourself stand out and be attractive in the world of temping. So I think one of the first things that I just want to mention, well, whether it's a permanent role or a temporary role that you're considering, you need to make yourself attractive to the employer. And I just want to touch on this one, because I think sometimes it's a bit of a misconception with temp work. And I know I mentioned earlier, it's a great opportunity to upskill and try different things, but it's definitely still got to be within your remit and within your transferable skills. You can't go from being a marketing manager into being an accountant. And I think sometimes people think, oh, I'll try it on a temporary basis to get my foot in the door. And it doesn't quite work like that. It's a little bit more around what is it around? Basically, hiring managers want someone that's going to be able to come in and hit the ground running. So you definitely need to be realistic in terms of what you're applying for. And I think around that, it's about making your CV and your skill set tailored to what you're applying for. So in terms of, what am I trying to say? So in terms of making your CV relative to what you're applying for, I know people have come from different backgrounds. So for instance, you may have started in sales and then moved your way into HR, and now you're quite interested in those roles that are in HR, but you're interested in roles that are in sales as well. I think it's really important that you have two separate CVs and tailor it to exactly what you are applying to. I will go into a bit more detail around your actual CVs in a second. But basically, my point of it is know your skill set, know what you're going in for, and apply kind of tailored to what you're after, if that kind of makes sense. And then the only other thing that I just want to mention on this is just about being available. I do get a couple of people contacting me and saying that they're interested in temp, but they can't start for 3 weeks or they can't start for 5 weeks. Temp doesn't really work in that way. So when temporary positions come in, a lot of people need someone to start on Monday. So it isn't a case that someone's happy to wait for you. It's very, very different. You kind of need to be ready and available. So make sure you are available, because you can miss out on an amazing opportunity by not being available, basically. But I'm going to move on to the next slide, and that's just going to be a couple of tips around your CV and making yourself attractive in the market. So in terms of your CV, it needs to be 2 to 3 pages maximum. 1 is a little bit too short, and anything more than 3, people just get bored, and being completely honest, people aren't going to read it. So one of the questions that I do get asked by people, especially professional temps that have temped or contracted in a lot of different roles, like, how am I supposed to condense it? I've done all these different positions. I think the main thing for you is to kind of like highlight that you have been temp or contracting, and the dates between what you've been doing this, and then moving on to kind of your key responsibilities and your key achievements that you've made. So definitely write down the achievements that you've made within your temping career history. The other thing is to definitely use bullet points. Bullet points help. No one's going to read through the stories that people write around your experience. So 100% I would say use your bullet points and summarize your experience. So a question that I actually got asked was from someone who had been working in permanent roles. She had been with the same company for a number of years, and she was looking to get into that temp and contracting space. Now, she keeps being redirected due to the fact that she hasn't got that contracting or temp experience. And I think one of the main things people are looking for when they are looking for that is that you can adapt to the situation and you can change based on your environment, and basically to change to manage people. So I think that probably wasn't quite right what I was saying, but I think basically what I was saying to her was she had come from a learning and development background, and she had done different projects, and she had worked with different branches across Australasia. She had been working with different managers, and she'd had to tailor her approach to each different branch. And she had also helped implement a whole new system across the whole of their Australasia's teams. So I think summarising something like that can show the way that you can change and you can adapt, and you can put basically your skills forward for them temporary kind of roles. Just on to the next point, obviously I've already touched on this, it's just customization. I think if you're applying for different roles, at the moment it is a really candidate heavy market, and there's a lot of people that are just applying for everything because we're in the time where everyone's looking for work. If your CV isn't relative to the role that you're applying to, people are just going to redirect you thinking that you've applied for the wrong role. So I would 100% say if you are actually applying for that role, make sure that it's obvious that that's what you're looking for. And then the final thing would be your picture. So in terms of having a picture on your CV, this is super debatable. So Yeah, Donna, so I would say that this one's a debatable one. I personally don't have a picture on my CV, and I think it is a case of some people like to have a picture on your CV, but if you are going to do a picture on your CV, it really needs to be professional, because if you do the wrong one, it can be it can go wrong. So no pictures on a night out holding a beer, no pictures, selfies. If you are going to put a picture on your CV, it needs to be professional and it needs to make you look approachable. Finally, let me just move on. So I just wanted to put up one more poll, and it's just around if you actually have LinkedIn. So I just want to see who has LinkedIn at the moment. And then from the ones that do have LinkedIn, just what you are, even if you don't have it, but what do you think is the most important things to have on your LinkedIn? 89% say yes. Perfect. 91% say yes. Okay, brilliant. So for the 9% that don't, I would 100% say that now is the best time possible to get yourself a LinkedIn. Basically, LinkedIn is a great platform. I use it, and a lot of my friends who are talent acquisition use it. It's a great way to network yourself. And it's a great way sometimes even to just not have to do anything with people approaching you with roles. So I would definitely say get yourself set up and get yourself on LinkedIn. In terms of what's the most important, I can see that we've got a few different ones through, and being completely honest with you, they're all just as important as each other. There's not one that is the most important, but I'll just kind of run through the main ones. So the interesting thing around LinkedIn and the picture, so even though I personally wouldn't put a picture on my CV, you 100% should have a picture on your LinkedIn. And it should make you look approachable, basically. So it's I've seen some people's that can be quite dark. You want to be smiling, it wants to be light, and it wants to look professional. So again, no pictures on a night out. In terms of headlines, so in terms of your headline, you want to put your title, basically, and then sometimes you can add that extra little bit to kind of reel in your audience. So just to kind of emphasize what your role title is. So it can be top salesperson for 2020 or whatever it kind of is to reel people in. In terms of your profile summary, so with your profile summary, it's completely up to you how you want to do this. A lot of people are very fact-based, and it's supposed to be something to kind of sell yourself and show that this is your experience and this is what you can bring to a company. Some people go for the humorous approach, which I quite like, but obviously if you want to tailor it to your audience, so if it doesn't fit with your sector, then don't worry about making it funny. It can just be fact-based. In terms of experience, so your experience needs to be up to date, and also one of the other things is it definitely needs to match your CV. One of the things that I do when I get a CV coming through, I can sometimes look you up on LinkedIn, and if there's things that don't quite match, it doesn't quite go right. So 100% make sure you've got your up-to-date experience and make sure it matches with what you're putting on your CV. You will have your dates, your headline. With this, you do want to still put your responsibilities, but you do want to have mainly your achievements there as well. This is a platform for you to sell yourself to potential employers. So you want to make yourself as attractive as you possibly can to potential employers that are looking on your LinkedIn. Contact details are a huge one, so 100%. I know some people don't like to put the contact details on things because they don't want to be contacted by random people, but yeah, contact details can always be a good one so that people can reach out to you. In terms of attachments, so attachments is an interesting one because you can actually showcase what you can do. So for instance, I could put this webinar on here today as long as it all goes well, and I can showcase the way what I do within my work so that when potential employers look on, they can basically get a bit of a feel as to how I act, my personality, etc. So it can just kind of be a bit of a selling factor for you as well. I just wanted to check on terms of time. How are we running for time?
So 40 minutes in.
Okay, perfect. So I've probably gone a bit over. I was going to touch on interviews, but if anyone has any questions around anything, feel free to reach out, and our contact details will go on to the on the next slide. But I'll just leave 5 minutes spare for Q&As. If anyone's got any questions for me or Shannon.
So,
oh, I think we had some questions coming from.
yeah, so there's a number of,
we'll just move this one around. Let's jump on in.
So there's been a number of questions come through the chat. So Sue asked, what are the positions that are likely to come up in the temp area? So I think definitely, as I spoke of earlier, for right now, it's likely to be those industries where, and role types where we've seen a sudden increased demand. So supporting those businesses who have been able to operate through and perhaps have offered up new services or are seeing a greater demand for their services and products. So that will include the support industries and the surge industries. So here we've experienced, particularly in customer service, as well as in healthcare, to be able to deal with the immediate pressures of the demand have been some key areas, and those are likely to stay the same. So to be able to look at those target industries and to see where those opportunities lie. Let's see, so we had Samantha ask, what's the temp market going to look like in 6 months' time?
I'll let you take that one.
Oh, let me take that one.
I feel like you've lived through it.
I think it's a little bit of the the $1 million question. So a lot of that will depend on how quickly we can get through this crisis and how quickly the world of work and the economy is able to get back on track. So I think within this the first 6 months, definitely those industries that I spoke of are going to be key. But hopefully by that time, we'll start to see the market start to stabilise. And I don't think it's going to go back to normal, because I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from this time as well, and we will see changes in the way that businesses work. But you'll see more of the regular opportunities. So things like project work definitely will be something that businesses, if they're focusing on something specific or making that change into a new way of work, will need to bring in some additional help and expertise. Right, Kirsty, this one's definitely for you. So what about Steve asked, what about new options for temps to work from home, and if there's any particular opportunities?
I think in terms of new opportunities to work from home, I think a lot, especially at the moment. So basically, companies have had to implement new systems and new techniques so that they can work from home. So obviously, apart from kind of your operations where you actually need to be on site, or kind of construction where you actually need to be on site, a lot of businesses are now able to work from home. And so it was quite interesting because we see it. We saw a role, I can't remember where it was, but even contact center work, they basically did all the training online, and everyone was just working from their home. So all of the calls were just being fielded through the new system that they brought on. So in terms of new opportunities, I think as long as it is kind of being able to do it on a computer via a system, I think we are actually going to see a bit of an expansion within that market in terms of the roles that are coming through.
Yeah, definitely. So having us all go through lockdown and a lot of those businesses still being able to operate, but to have their staff working from home has proven that we're able to do it. And also there may be some businesses or managers who previously had hesitations around that with the challenges of managing a remote workforce. And again, through this experience of being able to see some of the benefits and in some cases improvements in productivity. So I do expect to see an increase in that. In fact, we saw with Seek, they've put through a brand new category for work from home. And we've already seen a lot of vacancies come through already. So yeah, I definitely think that's something that's on the horizon. Let's see. This one's for you. So around CVs. So tips to work as temp staff, but when you what you should put on your CV when you've worked in a variety of different positions. So rather than having a list of, should you list, you know, the 20 temp jobs that you had, or how should you deal with that on your CV?
So definitely don't list the 20 million jobs that you've had in the temporary world. So what I would say to do is have the dates that you have been temping and the kind of area that you've temping, so business support or accounting. And then sometimes it can be good to put some of the companies that you have temp for, especially if they are reputable. But then the main thing that you want to be putting here is your key responsibilities, your key skills that you've got from that role, and your key achievements. So even if you've worked in a couple of different kind of temp roles, it's good to group them together, but you don't want to be putting each individual one kind of onto your CV.
Okay, I think we've got time for one last one. So from Steve, asked if Frog is using a matching and interactive platform to be able to match candidates or people within our community with available vacancies. So that is actually something that P2P and Frog have been working on in the background, to be able to use AI as a way to really tap into the thousands of wonderful people who we have met and who their circumstances may have changed from when we first met with them and interviewed, so that we can give you really relevant information and to keep that interaction. So it is something on the horizon, but it is still in development for us. So what we'll do from here, so just checking the time, we're up to our 45-minute limit, and I'm sure you've got other things to get on with for the rest of the day. But what we will do as well is to look through the rest of the questions there, and to be able to come back with some of those answers as well. But thank you and definitely thank you for your perseverance. I know we had a few issues at the start there, but really appreciate your interaction and hope it's been useful.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.